Hi, this is Kayla, and it is week 5, and I'm in group 4. And our questions this week, first of all, were, according to Polkingham, what part does cognition play in our experience of living in systems and having systems thinking? And I found this reading to be pretty difficult, very complex, but I think that what it is talking about is the way that we process things, the way we look at things, both in the way that we live and the way that we think. We need to look at the different aspects. What makes up what we're thinking? Why do we think what we think? Are there things in society that kind of play a role in what we think? The reading talked about things like we understand something because society puts a meaning to it, and I think that those things, we interpret things the way that society does, but also the way that we do, and it just depends on which perspective you're looking at things. Are you looking at the outside factors? Are you looking at the key components? And understanding that in research there are all of those aspects that need to be considered, and that it's not just one approach. I think that just the things that we're aware of and the things that our mind does without us being aware, that was kind of the complex issues that were discussed in our reading, and also our intuition, the things that we just do naturally, the things that the reading kind of talked about we're just sort of born with, talking about, for instance, that the children understand these things and they're not necessarily taught them, they just understand them. And I think that in the reading it talked about languages specifically. I think that the fact that children can kind of pick up on the different languages, that it's easier for a child to learn another language than an adult. I think that kind of is an example of that we have these cognitive things in our lifestyles and in our ways of thinking that we might not be aware of, but that we need to kind of take into perspective. And then moving on to the second question, according to the Nelson and Polinsky text, what is the process for critical research, and what types of methods are best suited to this kind of research? Our reading talked about collaboration amongst everyone. I think it's important to understand that it's not just the researcher doing the research, that it is a constant collaboration, and that it's also constant communication, that everyone that's kind of a stakeholder that's involved in your research should be communicated with. I think a lot of times we kind of do our research, keep our findings to ourselves until it's published, but I think that this kind of reminded us that we need to be constantly communicating, that it's not just, again, the researcher doing that work, and that it also reminds us that the research is done with people and not on them. I think that that's a really important aspect. It's one of the things I talked about in my video from last week, but the fact that the people that we're doing this research on, that they play such a big role in the research, it's impacting their lives, and so we need to understand that we're not doing the research on them, we're doing it with them because it serves a purpose for them. And also the importance of understanding that it's a long-term commitment, that these projects might not just be simple projects, they will require a long-term commitment. We need to be willing as researchers to put in that long-term commitment, to understand that our research isn't necessarily done just because we finished one aspect of a project. And also reminding us of the value-based side of critical research and the goals of social change, that research that we're doing is for a purpose, and that it's a purpose for serving the underrepresented population, that it really does have an impact in their lives. And lastly, it kind of reminds us that for the second part of that question, as far as the types of methods, that the qualitative methods are going to be best appropriate, because those are the methods that are going to kind of give the voice to the disadvantaged population. It kind of allows them to kind of relate, or others to relate to their experiences. So by giving them that voice, again, we're working towards that social change. So the reading kind of focused on the fact that quantitative research could be involved, but that it should be in addition to qualitative if we're going to implement that quantitative, that the qualitative was more important. So that is what I got out of this reading for week 5, and I look forward to watching the moderator videos.